This is an introduction to proportion and cross multiplication. What is a proportion? Well, let's first start with something called a ratio. Something like this, 1/2 or 1:2, we call this a ratio. But notice that 1/2 is the same thing as 3/6, which is also a ratio. When we set two ratios equal to each other, clearly those are the same, right? We could just simplify the 3/6 down to 1/2. Once we set these two ratios equal to each other, we call this entire expression a proportion. All right, proportion. And we can read this off a few ways, but one thing we might say in describing this proportion here, we could say 1 is to 2 as 3 is to 6. Right? That's just a way to talk about proportions in words. 1 is to 2 as, the equal becomes as, 3 is to 6. When you're trying to solve proportions, you use cross multiplication. Cross multiplication. Okay, to solve proportions. All right, so it goes like this. When you have A over B equals C over D, we call it cross multiply because we take these bottom two and multiply up like that. Right, so this gives us AD equals BC. All right, and we call this entire process cross multiplication. So let's look at an example. It's a really fast way of doing things. It's really the same. What we're doing when we cross multiply, we're really finding the LCD, the least common denominator, and multiplying both sides by that. And so it's essentially clearing fractions with the LCD. It's just when it's one fraction equal another, it's really smooth to just bring up the denominators. It only works if it's one fraction equal another fraction. If there was something else going on off to the side here, this wouldn't work. Let's see how this works. Okay, so maybe we have something like 9 over 4x equals, I don't know, 6 over 2. All right, so now I'm going to take these denominators, I'm going to cross multiply. So I'm going to bring them up like so. Okay, so that gives us 9 times 2 equals 6 times 4x. And we can solve this rather quickly. 9 times 2 is 18 equals 24x. Okay, so now we'll divide each side by 24, giving us x equals 18/24. Always simplify your answers. What can we cancel out of the top and the bottom here? I'm thinking, how about a 6? A 6 comes out of both 18 and 24, leaving us with 3 on the top and 4 on the bottom. 3/4 for that one. So that's how you use cross multiply. Let's try another example. Okay, let's see. Let's do something like 6 over 11 equals 27 over 3x minus 2. Here we cross multiply again. Bring these denominators up. And be careful when you have a bunch of terms like this, like 3x minus 2, put parentheses around it, because we want this 6 to go through to that entire denominator, not just the 3x. Okay, so that gives us 27 times 11 equals 6 times 3x minus 2. Okay, well 27 times 11 is 297 equals 18x minus 12. Okay, we can add 12 to both sides. That gives us 309 equals 18x. Dividing both sides by 18 gives some crazy decimal, 17.166666. Okay, so I would say this, don't convert these to decimals unless it's absolutely necessary. And especially if you're doing a word problem, then you might want to convert to decimals. But if we're just doing pure math like this, let's leave it in fraction form. Okay, so this gives us We divide both sides by 18 to get 309 divided by 18. 309 eighteenths equals x. Well, I bet we can simplify this. Maybe let's see what happens if we factor a 3 out of both of those. We can take a 3 out of both. That gives us 103 over 6. And I think that'll do the trick there. 103 sixths.